welcome to the It Matters series. I recognize my backdrop is a little different than the other guys. Brice had to make an extra trip to Alabama to film my sequence, and I want to thank him and the folks at Riverside Christian Academy for letting us film on their location. I want to talk to you about relationships matter. In the book of Ecclesiastes, a lot of people have studied Ecclesiastes and they take it as a lament. Ecclesiastes means the preacher. And Solomon writes this dissertation about all the things that he's tried in life that came up empty. And in fact, he uses the word vanities in the King James Version. A lot of times he'll say meaningless. Really, the intent of the Hebrew word is wasted breath, or a breath that is breathed out, not a life-giving breath, but a breath that has always been spent. I played some football for a club, and our athletic director, Darrell Webb, would fuss at me. I played defensive end, and ends did not contain. We penetrated, and I'd bust through the line and just be this close to a quarterback and get a handful of air, and Webb would scream, "Lonzo, you're chasing vapor trails." Well, that's what Solomon's talking about. He says these things that he's talking about are meaningless. They're vapors. It's like trying to grab the mist. A lot of people, when they study Ecclesiastes, think that Solomon is doing a lament. I really believe that Solomon, as wise as he was, wrote this kind of like a skit. He's taken on the role of a character, a man who is the preacher. And as his character says, I've tried wisdom, I've tried fame, I've tried success, and all those things are meaningless. They're wasted breath. They're vapor trails. In the whole book, there's one thing he talks about, and when he talks about it, his conclusion is not vapors. His conclusion is not meaningless. The one thing he talks about in this entire dissertation about things that don't matter is this section here. Two are better than one because they have a good reward for their labor. If one falls down, a friend can help him up. But woe to the man who falls and has no one to help him up. And if two lie down together, they can keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Though two may be overpowered, the one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. When Solomon talks about relationship, when Solomon talks about friendship, when Solomon talks about companionship, his conclusion is not that it's wasted. His conclusion is not that it's vapors. In fact, he makes a couple of observations. If you have a partner, 2 are better than 1 because they have a better reward for their labor. If you surround yourself with people who have the same goals and the same mission, you get an exponential increase in your labor. When you're dating, you don't want a project, you want a partner. You don't want somebody that you're dragging to heaven. You want somebody that walks hand in hand and helps you get to heaven. Solomon says 2 are better than 1 because you get a better reward for your labor. Secondly, he says 2 are better than 1 because if one of you has trouble, if one of you falls down, your companion can help you up. But woe to the person who's by himself and he falls. This summer, we were actually climbing, and we had a piece of rock break out from under my climbing partner, Troy Farmer. Troy took about a 30-foot fall, and I was lucky enough to be able to gather some rope and catch him. The only thing that hit the ground was his heel. Now, he wasn't seriously hurt, but he couldn't get out by himself. We had to carry him out. We had to lower him down a steep bank with a rope. Had he been alone and done something as simple as break your heel, he'd have stayed in those woods. If you've got good relationships and you do have trouble, you run into a sin or a temptation, you run into some kind of crisis, and you've got somebody who's a partner, they can help you in your time of crisis. The next thing he says is if 2 lie down together, they can keep warm. Now, I know I'm talking to teenagers. Just calm down and don't get crazy here, all right? Think about being in a small room full of people, how hot it gets and how fast. Well, if we were somewhere and it got cold and the power went out, and we gathered together appropriately and got close to each other in the same room, we could share off of each other's heat. We could share off of each other's warmth. That's the beauty of church. We gather together and we share each other's warmth. We share each other's strength. We share each other's commitment. And so 2 are better than 1 because we can increase our ability to protect and care for one another. Then Solomon says that 2 are better than 1 because if you are alone and you get attacked, you can be overpowered. Peter warns us that the devil is a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour. I don't know a lot about big predators, but the one thing I know about predators is they always attack the lamb or the deer that's alone from the herd or separated from the pack. And Solomon says that if you get attacked and you're by yourself, you're overpowered. But two can defend themselves. Two can protect themselves. One version actually reads, but two can stand back to back and fight. You can protect yourself on a multiplicity of levels and in a multiplicity of scenarios. Two is better than one because you can defend each other, protect your faith, protect each other from temptation, and support each other in crisis. And then the last thing, he just simply makes an observation. If you take a cord and it's wrapped with 3 strands, it's not quickly broken. The climbing ropes that we use will hold over 7,000 pounds. If you take a climbing rope and you cut it and you look inside, it's made up of individual fibers that are thinner than the hair of your head. But you put all those fibers together and you bind them in one place, then what happens if you get an effect where all these fibers running in the same direction give a strength that is almost phenomenal. Because you take little tiny threads and when you combine them together, what you've got is a very, very strong rope. Just sometime take a pencil and break it. Then take 2 pencils and break it. Then take 3. Eventually you'll find out that you get a stack of pencils about like that and it's impossible to break. Not because a pencil's that strong, but because when you hold that many pencils together, they give each other strength. Relationships matter because they give us strength. Relationships matter because they give us support. Relationships matter because they give us warmth. Relationships matter because they help us in a time of crisis. And relationships matter because once you have a partner, you get a better reward for your labor. Solomon, when he talked about everything in life that was meaningless, the one thing he said was worth something was what kind of people we surround ourselves with. And relationships matter.